My name is Nana Aisha Salaudeen. I am a video producer and a managing editor. A managing editor is basically in charge of like the storytelling of whatever business or company that they work at. So that's what I do. I work in tech and film. I decided to be a video producer because growing up it's something that I had always wanted to do. Like I grew up watching a lot of TV shows, then it was Disney, and I kind of knew that I wanted to be able to make the kind of shows that I liked. And so when I got the chance to do it finally, I think I just took it. So I guess the short answer is I liked what I saw on TV and wanted to be part of that engine. On Disney, my favorite shows, sometimes I mix up Disney and Nickelodeon shows. I'm getting older, but I'll mention a bunch. So I liked anything that had Zendaya, Shake It Up, Casey Undercover. I liked That's So Raven, Hannah Montana. There are a lot. I liked, what's the name of that superhero boy? Can't remember. I liked iCarly, Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. Okay, there are like a lot. I Like Girls is a narrative storytelling podcast, and we document the experiences of African women. So it's kind of like women come to talk about like the experiences that impacts them uniquely because they are women, and we talk to women from across the continent. I think I Like Girls, I don't have the numbers right now. We've done over 50 episodes and we've talked to women in over 20 countries. So I actually really like the podcast and I enjoy the conversations that we have with women. I think the episodes that tend to stay with me or stick with me are episodes on topics or themes that I'm not particularly familiar with. So it's stuff that I'm learning something new constantly. And with the female experience, like that's like every other Tuesday. So I think one of the episodes that stayed with me was one when we talked to someone who had a lot of children about motherhood and just like her experiences. And we talked to someone who did not want to have kids. And so I think I particularly enjoyed those two episodes because it's like bringing women on opposites, like they're not the same, opposite sides of the world and kind of hearing like what it means to be a mom, like how it's beautiful to birth life, and someone that was like, yeah, no, fuck them kids. I think for me it was just a very interesting learning experience that also helped shape me personally to kind of define how I think about like kids and marriage and all of that. It was very awkward. My first time doing my podcast on air was very awkward because prior to that, I didn't have any experience even making a podcast or hosting it. So I did have a script, so that helped because it's a narrative podcast, so you kind of pre-write it. But like, I remember moments when I was talking too fast, going too slow. And so finding that balance was extremely awkward. The good thing about that kind of podcast is that it's not live. So you can do it multiple times over and over until you get it right. So that helped me. I did it multiple times and it's been a learning curve, but now I think I'm fairly decent at it. Of course, I faced public criticism. We're not allowed to mention names, but also if I mention names, I might curse them out. But like, I think I've been dragged on Twitter a couple of times for like my work, but also for holding very strong feminist views about my work. So I'm not a stranger to criticism. And also, I used to work as a journalist, and like if someone doesn't like your work, that's like every other Tuesday, you're going to get dragged. So I think it's fair to say that I'm best friends with like public criticism. I don't handle public criticism, I just log off, and I probably need to go to therapy, but I think I just log off and I try to hyper focus on the positives, especially if I'm convinced that it's work that is worth being out there. But I don't think I have a formula for dealing with it. I just don't deal with it. I think, and I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, I think personally I've had to just like be twice as good and work extra hard just to be visible. And it's facts, right? Because like people would most likely, and sometimes it's subconsciously, like defer to like your male counterparts, and so you have to be twice as loud, twice as good, just so the attention comes to you. So personally, for me, it's a bunch of things. One, I'm working extra hard I'm doing the work, I'm learning and relearning, but I'm also advocating for myself by making noise about my work. A long time ago, I used to be one of those, your work would speak for you people if it's good. That's a fucking lie that they sold to you. Like, your work will not speak for you because it will be drowned by other people who are also doing equally fantastic work. And so it's up to you to advocate for yourself. And for me, it was as simple as starting with social media, because I mean, that's where my primary audience is. And so I was constantly sharing updates, posting stuff. Like, at some point, I almost became like a social media content creator in a bid to share my work. But I feel like once I got to a certain place I felt comfortable, I stopped. So for me, it was just working twice as hard and then advocating for myself publicly over and over again. So yeah. I think what I enjoyed the most about working in media is actually the final result. So when you're doing the work, the pre-production is the ghetto, and almost something will almost always go wrong on sets. But like when you see the product of your work, like the visuals, or you see how it's impacting people and how people are connecting to the message, I think for me that's what like keeps me going, that okay, even after all of this trouble, someone found it impactful, someone thought it was useful. So I think that's like that's been the consistent favorite thing for me when I do something. Like, I'm motivated just knowing that someone found it useful or helpful. I'll be honest, when I first started the podcast, it was primarily selfish. I wanted to like expand how to tell stories, and I wanted to be able to do it with audio because I had been doing text for such a long time at the time. And I didn't just think that it would be that important, because for me, I thought of it as learning how to do audio and doing it in something I care about, like women. And so after the first season of I Like Girls, I was getting a lot of messages from people who were like, genuinely, because we had a newsletter, and people would genuinely reply to the newsletter and be like, this was helpful. Someone talked about how before the podcast, which I thought was odd, but I appreciate that the podcast helped. She was like, she didn't know much about postpartum depression, for example, and she didn't know about like mental health the way that the podcast, because the way we do it was we bring people who have experienced something and we just let them tell their story. So we're not going clinical or academic. I mean, we are, but like it's from someone's perspective. And so she talked about how that telling the story in that way, she found it extremely helpful, and she's learned a lot about these themes and topics. And just knowing that, oh, this small thing that I did and I wasn't thinking too much about it, someone found it impactful. And I mean, yeah, I think that's an example of just how it felt worth it. I was like, okay, I'll do another season, and after that, I'll do another one. And so, yeah, same with TV. I would say being a journalist has really helped me with like how I tell stories now, because as a journalist, I made a lot of connections, and I was primarily driven by curiosity. So my journalism started at Stairs. At the time, Stairs wasn't a data company, and I had a manager who kind of taught me curiosity. So if I would like sometimes come to the office and I would say, I wonder why like there was so much traffic, like the roads are bad. I wonder why the roads are so bad in Nigeria. And he'd be like, go and research it and write about why the roads are bad. One day I was like, why are Nigerians always drinking Hennessy? He's like, go and research it and write about it. So like, to a point I was scared of talking in the office, but like, that was how my journalism was built. I was constantly curious. And so by the time I left Stairs, I had random information about the most random shit, and I had honed that curiosity. So when I switched to podcasting, it was the same curiosity that was driving me along with my journalistic instincts. And so like I was able to like weave a story together, which is why the podcast is narrative storytelling versus say conversational, because I wanted to challenge myself to actually tell the story that way. And when I became a video producer, it wasn't hard. I mean, of course, production is hard, but like it wasn't hard to weave a narrative together, because like being a journalist driven by curiosity, like it all just came together. And same thing with film. And so I see the pattern of how journalism and the kind of training I had that year with Michael, shout out to Michael, really has brought me to where I am today. I tend to want to call myself an ex-journalist because I don't primarily do reporting anymore, which is like one of the core things with journalism. Now I tend to do video production. To be honest, I guess it's semantics, because if you wanted to weave the things I do now and call it journalism, you wouldn't be wrong. It's just, please don't call me a journalist. I prefer doing like video production. Yeah, but also like journalism tends to primarily, unless it's features, primarily focus on reporting, and that's not a thing I'm even good at. Like I'm more of like the narrative and storytelling, so I guess that's why I try to make that distinction, but I wouldn't like take offense if someone called me a journalist. I have been lucky, like in all the places that I've worked, I haven't really had to, that hasn't happened to me. All the examples I have are outside work. At Stairs, it was just me as the journalist. At CNN, like it was an all-woman team actually, except for one camera person who was a guy, so we were like dominated by like women. And right now at work, in tech, I have like, there are lots of women and our voices are always loud. So I'm kind of fortunate, which is interesting, that I haven't had to do that at work. It's usually like external when that happens. So I used to get a lot at CNN when we go to shoot, someone would be like, I think there was a scenario where we're trying to film somewhere. I'm trying not to give too many details, and the person was like, go and bring the person that is in charge. Like I want, because like, you know, when you're filming outside, like you have to settle people, go and bring the person that's in charge. And when I showed up, I was like, oh, it's even a woman. Like, okay, when you are ready, come and talk to me, bring a man. So like, those are the scenarios that I've had to deal with, but like never within the context of work, always outside of work. So I've been fortunate. On Spotify Equal. Okay. Yes, it is. Okay, let me say the answer again. I have a lot of songs that make me feel powerful and good. There's On My Mama by Victoria Monet. But on Spotify Equal, I'm constantly listening to Woman Commando Arresta. It's just a fantastic song. I love it.